So I had my baby about 9 weeks ago. I had her in early November, and it was very, very intense. So here's what happened. I'm going to do another video about this first part because it is something I think a lot of people go through, but not a lot of people talk about. So my husband, I believe, probably because of a drop in testosterone that a lot of men experience towards the end of their partner's pregnancy, the beginning of the postpartum period, he went through a bit of depression the last couple weeks of my pregnancy. And it was really intense. It was really, really stressful. We got into some massive fights, and possibly that put me into labor early. So what happened was, a week before my due date, we had a really intense discussion 2 days before. And again, he wasn't in his right mind. He was like feeling very depressed, very emotional. So we had just gotten over that, and I decided that I really had to put up Christmas decorations. So I spent 5 hours on my feet putting up Christmas decorations. 39 weeks pregnant, wouldn't recommend it. Went to bed, woke up about 2:30 a.m., which wasn't that abnormal. I had really bad insomnia during pregnancy. I would almost always wake up between like 2:30, 3:30 a.m. and be awake till about 6. So I was awake, just reading my book in the dark on my phone in bed. And at about 3:30, I started to have like what felt like menstrual cramps. And I was like, oh, maybe my body's just really stressed out after, everything that was happening. But then it would go away. And then it would come back 10 minutes later. And then it would go away. Then it would come back 10 minutes later. And I thought, okay, well, there is, yes, a pattern to this, but surely I'm not in labor. Like I don't have my babies early, I have them late. So after about an hour of having what felt like strong menstrual cramps every 10 minutes, I finally downloaded one of those contraction tracker apps, started tracking it. And for the next hour, they got closer and closer together. And they got so strong that I had to close my eyes and breathe through them. And finally, I stopped denying that I was probably actually in labor. So I also had an inexplicable urge to take a shower and do my hair. So 2 hours into labor, as the contractions are starting to get stronger and longer, I take a shower, pausing to like brace myself and breathe through the surges, but in the warm water, they're not that bad. I'm like, oh yeah, like labor is really no big deal. I got this. So I get out of the shower, call my midwife while I'm on the toilet, let them know they should probably come, start curling my hair, drying and curling my hair. And when I'm blow drying my hair, because heat felt really good on my uterus or on my, abdomen, every time I'd have a surge, I would just like blow the blow dryer on my abdomen, and that felt good. So I curled my hair and thought, oh yeah, this is just going to be a breeze. So finally my husband comes in, he pumps up the birth tub. I sit on my birth ball. I'm like swirling my hips, still like, it's not that bad. And then about 3 hours in, my midwives arrive, and it's starting to feel more like labor. I'm not really enjoying the contractions so much. They're getting harder. But again, sitting on the birth ball, swirling my hips, doing, deep breathing is really helping. And then as they started to get stronger, honestly, one of the biggest things that helped, and it sounds so simple, but I would start counting. Because before I started counting, it felt like the contractions would just last forever. I was in this like timeless void of intensity during the contractions. But once I started counting, and this is something I knew before, that typically at about 30 seconds, the surge is typically, or the contraction is going to start subsiding. It's not going to be as intense. So as the contraction would start, I would start counting from 1 to 30, knowing that, okay, all I have to do is get to 30 and then I'm going to have a break. And that really mentally helped me to continue to keep breathing and to get through each contraction, because I knew this isn't going to last forever. And I had these like concrete numbers to latch onto. When the contraction started to get really, really, really strong, it took all of me to get from like between like 5 to 25 was so hard. After 25, I was like, okay, I just have like 5 more seconds and it's going to start going down. And then I would breathe. And I kept being pulled to the toilet. I kept feeling like I'm going to poop. I'm going to poop. Like I don't want to poop on this ball. I don't want to poop in the tub. I got to go to the toilet. So I kept going back to the bathroom. I would prop my feet up on the birth stool. And in the beginning, my husband would stand in front of me and I would lean into him and like gripping onto his legs. Poor guy probably has like claw marks in his thighs. And then I would come back to the birth ball. I just like couldn't quite find like the space where I wanted to be. About 4 hours after those like very mild menstrual cramps started, I finally decided to get into the tub, and it felt really good at first when I wasn't having a contraction. I kind of leaned back, whereas before, for all the other contractions, I had been leaning forward, sitting on the toilet. I was leaning forward, sitting on the birth ball. I was leaning forward, propped up on some pillows with my head kind of like that, allowing my belly to kind of fall between my legs, which brought a bit of relief. The back labor I was having went away when I would do that. And so in the tub, I'm leaning back and a contraction hits. And it is unbearable, but I can't really move while I'm having it. So I'm kind of like stuck in this position like this. And it hurts so bad I can't even count. I'm just like trying to survive it. So immediately after that stops, I lean forward onto the side of the tub thinking like, all right, the next contraction will be a lot easier. I'm in the right position. But I had another one. It was a little bit easier in the tub. But then again, I felt like I am going to poop. I'm going to poop. I don't want to poop in the tub. So about 10 minutes after I got in the tub, I got out of it. I went back to the bathroom. And the first contraction that I have on the toilet is so intense. I'm like gripping onto the towel rod that's in front of the toilet, like white knuckling it. And this time I get to 30, but it doesn't subside. It just like keeps going. And so what happens, so okay, here's like no intensity, here's a lot of intensity. So what happens is it goes up about 45 seconds, it starts to go down, but then it almost plateaus. So I never get that full break. And then I have another one that's even stronger. And after that second one, I felt like, okay, if I have another one that's that strong, I'm going to the hospital, I'm getting an epidural, like hell no, these are way too strong. And at that point, I did have a tiny break, and I reached into my vagina to see if like I could feel anything, to see like, is the head getting close? I couldn't feel anything. So I was just convinced that I'm not even close to being dilated. The head's nowhere near. This is going to take forever. And at a home birth, unless you request it, a lot of times they don't do vaginal exams. So I had no vaginal exams. I had no idea how dilated I was, which I preferred because say they did a vaginal exam right before this, if they would have said, oh yeah, you're only at 4 centimeters, I would have said, let's definitely go to the hospital. Like if it took me this long and this much intensity to get to 4 centimeters, like hell no. But then I had, sitting on the toilet, I had another contraction. My husband, he was in the kitchen making smoothies for everybody. He wasn't there. Thank God one of my midwives happened to be in the bathroom. She had this instinct that somebody should be like kind of sitting there. So she was quietly sitting in the bathroom. I have another contraction. And this time I have this uncontrollable urge to push. Even though, again, I just felt up my vagina, there's no head there, but I felt like I have to push. And I was just sure that this time I was probably going to poop. So I push on the toilet. A little bit of that poop does come out. My water breaks. My mucus plug comes out. And half of the head comes out. I reached between my legs and it felt this like really wrinkly thing. And I was just sure, I was like, oh, one of my organs came out. That's like my bladder or something. Surely that's not the head. So I tell my midwife, I think there's something between my legs. And she's like, oh, yep. Okay. That's the head. So I have another contraction. They're like frantic. They're getting my husband, they're getting everybody, putting pads down. And all I can think about is getting this baby out. And so I have another contraction, I push again, and the entire head is almost out now. So they force me into a standing position. They lift me up, I'm standing, have another contraction, the head is fully out. One more contraction, the body's out. Bam. Like she was born, my daughter was born probably about 10 to 15 minutes after I got out of the tub. So all in all, labor was probably about like 4.5, 5 hours. But the active labor was probably only about 2.5 hours. So she was born just like that. She dropped down incredibly fast. Granted, this was my second baby. So the pathway had already been stretched out, certainly not paved, but stretched out from my son. And it was one of the most intense things I've ever done, also one of the most amazing. And a lot happened during the postpartum period, but because this video is already so long, I'm going to do that in the following video, filling you guys in on the postpartum period.